preventing wildfires. That's all Smokey wants for his 70th birthday.
In Fairfield County, something new comes across my desk every day. Crimes are committed, cases are solved, and a community is made safe by the hardworking employees of the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office.
Welcome to This Week with Sheriff Dave Phalen, a weekly program here on LSN Television. We're also carried by a number of the radio affiliates in Lancaster. Do appreciate you, the viewers and listeners that join us every week. Our executive producer, Kelly Roberts, behind the scenes, lines the guests up, gets the questions, does a terrific job. And certainly we are appreciative of Fairfield Christian Academy. This is actually on site at their school, and we get a lot of nice comments about the program, and certainly I'm appreciative of the viewers and listeners. Backed by popular demand is Commander Dennis Lowe.
Thank you, Sheriff.
The newly appointed commander to the Major Crimes Unit here in Fairfield County. And before we get started, tell us a little bit about the Major Crimes Unit. What is the Major Crimes Unit, for those that may or may not know?
Sure. The Major Crimes Unit is essentially our narcotics task force that's made up of officers from Fairfield, Hocking, and Athens County. And we serve a pretty large and diverse population. The bulk of the folks that are on the task force are supplied by the sheriff's departments, the police departments that are participating agencies. And we're out there every day looking for folks that are trafficking in drugs and trying to rid those three counties of that problem. And it's a daunting challenge, but we have some exceptional people assigned to those task forces, and they work diligently every day. I've just been super impressed by the effort that I've seen so far since I've been with the task force. In the work that they do. It's very impressive. It's dangerous work. We have folks that work undercover, purchasing drugs and doing search warrants and interdiction with our scrap folks and the SIU folks in Hocking and Fairfield counties. And we have folks that are out there following up on tips and complaints and taking meth labs down. It's just it's absolutely incredible the work they do.
Yeah, they do a terrific job. And it does seem to me that within the last couple of years we've seen really at least kind of a stop, so to speak. I mean, it seemed like every year we had more and more inmates in our jail, but it seems like the last couple of years things have kind of slowed down a little bit. And so we're hopeful, and we're glad to have you aboard.
I'm super excited about the opportunity, and I would hope to live long enough one day to see that drugs is not an issue in our society. I don't know that I'll make that goal,
right.
But I certainly am honored to have an opportunity to participate and hopefully maybe bring about some of that change.
And what I always try to remind the viewers and listeners of, that Fairfield County still remains a safe and secure community. It's a great place to live, work, raise a family. And part of the reason is our law enforcement community, whether that's the sheriff's office, the local police departments, the Major Crimes Unit. Before airtime, we just talked a little bit. There's a big push to get marijuana legalized in the state of Ohio. Mm-hmm. And I guess as the commander of the Major Crimes Unit and a veteran of undercover work in the last 30 years, what's kind of your sense and thought on that?
Well, I'm opposed to the legalization of marijuana, and for a number of reasons, some of which aren't necessarily what I think people use as taglines, that it's a gateway drug and all these other things. That may or may not be true. That issue is certainly debatable. But the one thing that I've seen over the course of 31 years, and 27 of those specifically in narcotics, Sheriff, I've never met a heroin addict or a methamphetamine addict or a cocaine addict or somebody that uses LSD or any of those other drugs that didn't also use marijuana. Marijuana is a consistent thread throughout those folks' lives. And I think the marijuana lobby, the legalizers, have done an amazing job in terms of just turning the tide in their favor. And, for years and years, they've been trying to legalize marijuana across the United States. And until they began using this medicinal component, to the problem. It never got any traction. But the reality is that, we don't know if marijuana has any medicinal value. And I've been in meetings with people who are legalization advocates where we've suggested, let's study the benefits of the cannabis plant that might be medicinal that don't contain THC, which is the psychoactive drug in marijuana, and we're flatly refused. We need the THC, that's where the medicine is.
And it would seem you could put that in some kind of a pill form.
There is a pill. There's a synthetic pill available now called Marinol. It's used by oncologists to treat cancer patients. I have a niece who's been suffering from cancer for a few years now, and she takes Marinol as to increase her appetite. So I think the medical portion of this is kind of a disingenuous argument, and I would just ask people to consider this. If marijuana was really medicine, Sheriff, why aren't the major pharmaceutical companies interested in it? Why don't we see Eli Lilly and some of these other pharma, Purdue Pharma, why aren't they all over marijuana? We don't see that. We don't see the American Medical Association, which is the country's doctors, legitimate doctors, advocating for marijuana reforms. And the reality is, it's people that want to use marijuana and not have any legal issues as a result of that. And I think you've been in law enforcement a long time. In 27 years of narcotics, I've never arrested a single person for possessing or using marijuana. We've cited people for possession of marijuana, but we see people using this argument that our prisons are filled with marijuana users. That's just not true.
Right.
What happens is someone gets arrested for selling 25 or 30 pounds of marijuana, and those cases are plea bargained down to a possession case, and now they're in jail for possessing marijuana. Huge amounts that they couldn't possibly use themselves. And I'll just share this one last statistic with you. California's had medical marijuana for a long time, Sheriff. And in recent studies in California, less than 2% of the patients who were being prescribed marijuana were cancer, glaucoma, or AIDS patients, which were the three medical issues that were trumpeted to put that initiative forward. Less than 2%. All the rest of these folks are 25 to 45-year-old people who are so injured and disabled that they need this drug to get through each day. And I think it's unfortunate that society thinks that we need to medicate ourselves to get through each and every day. And so I would just ask people, if you're really considering a vote to legalize marijuana, do some research and actually go out and learn what's actually going on out there. Just don't be swayed by a television ad where marijuana legalizers may bring someone in a wheelchair who claims that marijuana actually helps them. That may in fact be the case. I'm not arguing that, but the totality of this issue. And we're still going to have black market marijuana, and tax revenue is a benefit. That's great. But how much tax revenue are we really going to see? And right now the leading bill that may appear on a ballot in November, it's 10 people, 10 groups that have access to grow this marijuana and profit from it.
Yeah, I think it's money motivated.
Absolutely.
And the one thing I've always thought about is, by and large, most people obey the law. They really do. Most people obey the law. And so if you have a product that's out there that is now legal, it's now sanctioned, that without a doubt, you're going to see an increase in its use. You're going to have more people that are addicted. You're going to have more people that are involved in traffic-related fatalities and accidents.
Yes, sir.
You're going to have a whole new generation of young people that this is going to be a problem for them. And to introduce that into our community when we've got enough as it is.
Absolutely.
And, a lot of people say it's probably no worse than alcohol. Well, alcohol is a tremendous problem when you look at the number of people killed in accidents or the homes ruined. It's very problematic. So hopefully, when it comes time to vote, the people will kind of wake up. But
I hope they really do some research. To your point, the state of Colorado, which is famous now for legalizing marijuana, they have seen an increase in the number of adolescents that are using pot, the number of adolescents that have been arrested for driving while under the influence of marijuana. Their homeless population has increased, where people are moving from other places around the country just to have access to marijuana. there are a lot of unfortunate side effects that I don't think people really are taking into consideration for what is really small tax benefit, if any. You know, we tax gambling, and we tax alcohol, and we tax cigarettes now, and we still see tax levies on our ballots every year for schools and educational purposes, and all of those things were sold to us as, let's tax these things and we'll have all this money. The same thing's going to happen with marijuana, and I think if people don't believe that, they're naive.
I remember years ago when they wanted to introduce the Ohio lottery, the idea was that once we had a lottery system in the state of Ohio, the schools would never have any more problems as far as the funding, and everything was going to go along fine. Well, we know today that that certainly has not materialized.
Yeah, it hasn't. But,
Yeah.
you know, this is society, and certainly the voters will have their say in the matter, and I'm optimistic. But the legalization advocates have huge money backing them right now.
Yeah.
And I think people would be surprised to see some of the companies and
Right.
folks that back those initiatives. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and we'll do what we're required to do by the law and to keep our community safe.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, that you've just been appointed to the head of the Major Crimes Unit.
Yes, sir.
What are some of the kind of things you see for the future, in the future, for the Major Crimes Unit?
You know, I really am looking at an opportunity to sit down and really kind of see what the guys do day in and day out and how the operation runs before we would make any sweeping changes or thoughts. But I have thoughts in terms of kind of becoming more involved in multi-jurisdictional investigations, because that's the way drugs get here.
Okay.
They don't, you know, cocaine and heroin and marijuana, it's not a product, a commodity that's native to Fairfield County. So through my associations with other law enforcement officers across my career, I see us working very hard to sustain those type of multi-jurisdictional investigations. I would like or expect that we're going to see a combination of street-level dealers that are out there still being looked at, in addition to large-scale traffickers, folks that maybe have been operating under the radar for a long time. And we're going to pay attention to those folks, and we're going to try to rid this community of them, and Hocking County and Athens County as well. And then just bringing all three of those counties together in terms of the resources and really focusing our efforts to rid these communities of drugs. And ultimately, I'd like to sit down and talk to education and prevention and treatment professionals as well, and see how we can better work collaboratively.
Right.
I think for a long time, enforcement, education, treatment folks have all been competing for the same pots of dollars, and we all have different agendas. And I think, you know, if we really want to rid our communities of drugs, it has to be a collaborative approach between all of those entities.
And before we go off the air, we want to mention that if anyone out there is listening or viewing that suspects some kind of illegal activity in or around their neighborhood, where they work, school, etc., there is a number that they can call, right?
That's right. We have a tip line at the Major Crimes Unit. It's 740-653-5224, and we encourage people to call because we can't be everywhere, and you can make that tip anonymous, and we have officers that will investigate that complaint immediately, and we'll try to bring it to some successful resolution.
Commander Lowe, great
Thank you, Sheriff.
programs the last couple of weeks. I know
Thank
that I've certainly learned some things.
Thank you.
And we look forward to having you back
can't wait to
periodically.
come back. I
Yeah,
enjoy it.
periodically as we kind of move
Absolutely.
through this. Well, the clock on the wall says we're just about out of time. Do appreciate you, the viewers and listeners that join us every week, our executive producer, Kelly Roberts, and certainly the students and staff here at Fairfield Christian Academy that we actually put this program together. Till next week, same time, same place. God bless, and we'll see you right here next week.